Welcome to the SingaporePropertyLens.com, your shortcut to uncover blind spots in your property investment. Today, we're looking at Zyon Grand. It's the newest big launch in Singapore's River Valley, Zion Road area, that's District 3, and it's always competitive there. Now, our sources on this, well, they paint a bit of a mixed picture. There are definite concerns about, the sheer number of new apartments all coming online up around the same time. But they also highlight some, let's say, pretty unique advantages that Zion Grand itself holds. The first thing that really jumps off the page is the architecture, very iconic vision here. The architect is ADDP. They're known for some seriously luxe projects like New Futura, Martin Modern, and more. Apparently, the whole building shape, 62 stories high, is inspired by Singapore's orchid flower. So visually, it's going to be a real standout, hard to miss. But great design isn't everything, especially when it comes to investment. Our mission today is to really cut through that noise for you. We want to clarify the two main issues the data raises. One, this regional competition. Is it really an oversupply problem or just, intense pressure? And second, how does that mandatory service apartment component actually impact things? So let's start right at the beginning. Who are the big names behind this?
Okay, yeah, we're talking about a proper powerhouse team here. Zyon Grand is a joint venture. You've got CDL, City Developments Limited. Everyone knows them, right? They did New Futura, Gramercy Park. Real local heavyweights, and they've partnered with Mitsui Fudosan. Now, they're a major Japanese developer, very well capitalized. Huge global projects. Think Tokyo Midtown, 50 Hudson in New York. They definitely have the financial muscle for this.
Financial muscle sounds about right for something this big.
Exactly. And the scale is, well, it's massive. The sources confirm 706 residential units. These are split across two tall blocks, 62 stories each, plus there's a whole separate third tower just for 373 service apartments. And crucially, it's what we call an integrated development. So you get direct access to shops, food, a supermarket, and Havelock MRT station.
Right, the tail line. That's convenient.
Very. Thompson East Coast Line put you what? 2 stops from Orchard, 3 from Marina Bay. Super
Right,
connected.
okay, hold on. 700 residential units plus almost 400 service apartments. That sounds like a lot of people. Is density going to be an issue? We hear that concern a lot.
That's a really fair question, and it's key for, actual living quality. But the design handles it quite cleverly, because those 706 residential units are separated from the service apartments and are split across 2 towers, right? The density per tower, per floor, is actually surprisingly low. We're talking maybe 6-7 units per floor on each block. Now compare that to some competitors nearby like PP or River Green. They might have like 12 to 16 units all crowding the same lift lobby.
Okay. So fewer neighbors on your actual floor level.
Exactly. You get less congestion in those shared lift areas, even though the total unit count is high. And actually having that larger number of units overall is what allows the developer to justify putting in, a really superior range of full condo facilities. Yeah, bigger budget. And we absolutely have to talk about the location and the visibility. Huge factors. It's within that crucial 1 kilometer of River Valley Primary School. That's always a big draw for families.
Always.
But thinking about investment, resale, its prominence is just, unmatched in that cluster. It sits right on the junction, surrounded by 3 main roads. You literally cannot miss it. This guarantees high visibility, high exposure. The sources really emphasize this. It's critical when things get competitive. You want your property noticed first.
Like a landmark, almost.
A bit like Marina Bay Sands, right? You just know where it is. That kind of visibility helps a lot down the line.
Okay, let's shift gears then to maybe the biggest hurdle flagged in our sources. The competition, the numbers are pretty stark. River Valley is looking at nearly 3,000 units. The figure is 2,876 from River Green, PP, Zyon Grand itself, River Modern, and another lot called Parcel C, all getting their TOP, their temporary occupation permit, around the same time. Is that genuinely an oversupply risk, or is it just, very tough competition that savvy buyers might actually...
Look, it is intense competition, full stop, no question about it. And yes, absolutely, for you buying right now, that can be an advantage. Developers, they're sellers, and they have deadlines, real ones. They've got rules like the 4-year project sale completion period. If they miss that, they face huge ABSD penalties, additional buyer's stamp duty, on any units they haven't sold.
Right. That pressure forces their hand on pricing.
Exactly. It forces them to price sensitively to move those units fast. That's partly why we saw a competitor like PP launch with relatively low starting prices, around that 2,680 per square foot mark. They needed to get sales moving, but, and this is the crucial flip side, the challenge you face today as a buyer. Well, that same pressure hits you when you become the seller or the landlord in, say, 4 or 5 years. You'll be competing against potentially thousands of other owners trying to sell or rent out their units all at the same time. That's a significant supply wave hitting the market simultaneously.
So, faced with that future competition, how do you protect your investment? What's the strategy? How does Zyon Grand stand out when that happens?
The key, the absolute key in a high supply resale market is that your development needs to be the number one choice. It has to be the standout, the one people gravitate towards first. And Zyon Grand has two big things going for it here. First, that iconic design we talked about, the orchid shape. It's memorable, architecturally interesting. It's not just another glass box. Second, and maybe even more importantly, its visibility and location right there on the main roads. Unlike some competitor plots, which are kind of tucked away inside the cluster, Zyon Grand is immediately obvious. Potential buyers, good corporate tenants, they see it first. That exposure is worth a premium when you need to sell or rent quickly.
Okay, that visibility point is strong. Let's tackle the other complexity then, that service apartment tower. The sources mentioned Zyon Grand got the land relatively cheap, $1,200 and 2 PSF PPR, partly because of this mandatory requirement to build but not sell this block of service apartments. They have to operate it, rent it out. So how does having this big chunk of unsold operated property affect the pricing for the residential buyers and maybe their day-to-day living experience?
Yeah, the financial side is really important to understand. And this is why you need a developer with frankly very deep pockets like CDL. Running service apartments is basically like running a hotel. Your capital is tied up for a long, long time. It takes many years to recoup those building and operating costs through rent.
Unlike selling condos where you get the cash back much faster.
Precisely. So even though the land cost per square foot per plot ratio, the PSF PPR was lower on paper, the final selling price for the actual residential condo units has to be higher per square foot than if they'd bought the land just for condos. They need to make up that cash shortfall from the service apartment side relatively quickly through the residential sales.
So, counterintuitively, cheaper land may not mean lower selling prices for the condos.
And what about living there? Does having, hundreds of short-term service apartment guests coming and going affect the residential side? Though the two areas are separated. More traffic, maybe management issues. That's a valid point about potential traffic and something buyers should consider. But the sources strongly suggest there's a significant rental upside that often outweighs this. It's quite a clever mechanism, actually. Service apartments, they cater to a specific niche, midterm tenants. Often corporate folks on assignment, executives staying maybe 2 weeks up to 3 months. And they pay premium rates. We're talking maybe $9,000 to $14,000 a month for a 2-bed.
Wow, okay.
So this creates a really powerful built-in feeder pool of potential long-term tenants for the condos. Think about it. Someone comes, stays in the serviced apartment, tests out the location, the facilities. They like it. Their company might be paying anyway. When their short-term stay ends and they need longer-term accommodation, where's the easiest place to look? Right next door, in the Zyon Grand condos. They're already familiar, and it's convenient.
Ah, I see. So the service apartments sort of pre-qualify tenants for the condo rentals.
Exactly. We've seen this work well in other integrated projects like Riviera. It helps keep the condo occupancy rates high, and it can even gently pull up the average long-term rental rates for you, the condo owner. It's like having a built-in demand engine right there.
Oh, that's a fascinating dynamic. So if the developer needs to price the residential units higher per square foot to cover the service apartment costs, how do they still compete on the overall price, the quantum, especially against neighbors like River Green, which went for small units and high PSF, and PP, which launched with bigger units but a lower PSF? How does Zyon Grand find its place?
Right. This is where the building's height becomes really interesting from a pricing perspective. There's this sort of tall building pricing rule. Because Zyon Grand is so tall, 62 stories. Any price increase per square foot as you go up has to be spread very, very thinly across all those floors. Maybe just like 0.5% or even less jump per floor. So if the developer needs the penthouse units at the very top to hit a certain target price, maybe 3,600 PSF to make the whole project viable.
Then the bottom floors have to start much lower to average it out.
Precisely. The starting prices on the lower floors must be relatively low to make the maths work across 60-plus levels. We're estimating minimum probably in the 2,700 to 2,800 PSF range to start, and then you combine that potentially competitive starting price with their unit mix strategy. It's quite smart. Their unit sizes take the smallest to better. It's 538 square feet. And importantly, no balcony these sizes. Sit strategically right between the very small units at River Green and the more generous ones at PP.
So not too small, not too big.
Kind of the Goldilocks zone. Yeah, so you get a competitive PSF maybe similar to PP's starting point, combined with a smaller, more efficient unit size, bit closer to River Green's approach. Put those two together, a competitive PSF and efficient size, and Zyon Grand could potentially offer the cheapest entry quantum for total ticket price in the whole cluster for certain unit types.
That makes it very appealing for getting a foot in the door. So for an investor purely focused on rent and yield, which unit stands out in the data? Is there a hidden gem?
Yeah, the sources definitely point towards the two-bedroom, one-bathroom layout at 538 square feet as being the investor standout. Two key reasons. One, the layout efficiency, crucially. No balcony. That means more usable indoor space for the rent you're paying, which tenants like. Two, you've got that service apartment effect boosting rental demand right next door. So the potential yield looks quite high, estimated maybe 3.7% or even more. Plus, apparently this specific two-bedroom, one-bathroom configuration is actually somewhat undersupplied in the River Valley resale market right now. It hits a specific tenant demographic.
Interesting. And what about people who want to live there? Families needing bigger spaces?
Well, there's a really compelling advantage for owner-occupiers looking at the larger units too, especially the four bedrooms. These start at 1,421 square feet, which is a decent size. But the key thing is they start from level 2, the very lowest residential floor. Now compare that to competitor PP. Their large units, similar sizes, only started way up on level 44.
Level 2 versus level 44. That's a huge difference in height premium.
Massive. Just that difference in starting floor could mean a quantum advantage, a saving of potentially $500,000 for buyers wanting a big unit in this prime spot.
Wow. $500,000 just by being closer to the ground floor. That fundamentally changes who can afford those larger family
It
units.
really does. It makes them much more accessible. Which brings us finally to the exit strategy, long-term viability. Who is the next buyer when today's buyer wants to sell? Ultimately, it comes down to affordability for the main pool of local buyers. That's HDB upgraders and EC, executive condo upgraders, right?
The people moving up the property
Exactly.
ladder.
And we've sort of run the numbers based on the source data. Let's take HDB upgraders first. Say someone's selling their HDB flat in nearby mature estates, Bukit Merah, Queenstown, maybe even Clementi. They often walk away with, let's say, $700,000, $800,000 in profit, CPF cash. For them, buying Zyon Grand's compact three-bedroom unit in the resale market estimated entry, maybe around $2.2 million, is quite achievable. They can afford it. And the original seller who bought at launch still makes a decent profit.
Okay, so the HDB upgrader pool can absorb the smaller family units. What about the bigger ones?
That's where the EC upgraders come in, especially those who've done really well. Maybe from high-profit ECs like 100 Palms, where some saw profits up to $1.5 million for them. Moving to a premium four-bedroom unit at Zyon Grand, estimated entry quantum around $3.9 million, is a very comfortable step up in size, luxury, and location. It's well within their reach.
So the argument is that there's a solid, identifiable group of next buyers for both the smaller and the larger units driven by genuine upgrading needs, not just speculation.
That's the core idea, yes. It's not just relying on general market uplift. There's this built-in demand from local upgraders with significant cash and CPF ready to deploy. And the thinking is Zyon Grand, with its visibility, its integrated features, its iconic design, is positioned to capture that affluent upgrader demand first when they start looking in this area, even in a crowded market. Now, like all investment, there's a risk to everything, despite all the potential. In fact, in the Orchard Road and River Valley enclave, there are 3 risky areas that I'll always advise my clients to avoid. Having walked the grounds of Districts 9, 10, and 11 for the past 20 years, I can share more in-depth ground experience. If you're selling your property or have already one in mind, check out SingaporePropertyLens.com to uncover some blind spots that you may have missed. With that, do get in touch, and I look forward to sharing more with you. Thank you for watching.